Today, I want to share with you what I believe to be the key to moving past the pain of your separation, divorce, or really any difficult trial that you may be experiencing. For those of you who don't know me or my story, I'm Michelle Willard, and I'm a life coach who is committed to helping unhappily married and divorced Christian women who are ready to release past wounds, break free from toxic cycles in their relationships with men, and step into a life of meaning and purpose regardless of their relationship status. I have been divorced twice, and I'm currently in my third marriage. So, as a Christian, my story has caused me a lot of shame. I left my first marriage after being physically abused, and the second one after years of infidelity. So, I can play the victim card if I want to, but it took going through a separation in my current marriage 7 years ago before I started to acknowledge that there's a common denominator in all of my failed relationships, and that's me. Since I wasn't the guilty party, it was easy for me to dismiss my role and just tell myself that, well, my picker's broken. But all that did was absolve me of any responsibility and lay all of the blame on the other person. And while that felt good in the moment, it didn't empower me to make different choices and change my behavior and my future. So as long as we see our circumstances as the problem, we turn ourselves into helpless victims with no hope for our lives to get better. We need to be honest with ourselves. No divorce is 100% the other person's fault. And even if we can only accept 1% responsibility, by doing just that, we can allow ourselves to focus on something that's inside of our control, and that's us. Now that some time has passed, I'm actually able to look back on that separation from 7 years ago and see it as a second or third chance to do it right and to have a different perspective. When I separated from my first two husbands, I didn't take time to be alone and reflect on what the experience was teaching me. I jumped right back into the dating scene before my divorces were even finalized because I just couldn't handle being alone with my thoughts. Dating temporarily made the pain go away. And if I'm being honest, even if I had decided not to date, I would have likely found something else to occupy my time. I just couldn't handle sitting with that pain. But the reality is that pain is one of the best teachers. Anytime that we experience pain, it will not leave us unchanged. We have the power, though, to make choices about how it will change us and the actual outcome of that change. We tend to fall back into old patterns when we're faced with pain. Maybe the way that we saw our parents deal with their difficult emotions. But it's inside of our pain that we can truly understand ourselves and learn and grow. In fact, James 1 says, "Consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kind, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Viewing our trials as pure joy is the opposite of what we're prone to do. Our natural instinct is to withdraw or become angry or fall into depression, really just to do anything that we can to avoid the pain. James goes on to say, "Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him." So, what does it mean to remain steadfast under trial? Steadfast means to be devoted or dedicated. But to what? To the process. Allow pain to serve its purpose. If we push it down, it'll just resurface later down the road. Walk through it. Feel it. Experience it. Figure out what it's teaching you. Trials and pain build our character. So to remain steadfast is to be devoted and dedicated to allowing the pain to build our character. Most of us are familiar with Romans 8:28 that says, And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him and who have been called according to his purpose. So many of us use this in an effort to comfort others who are going through a difficult time. But the Greek word for good in this passage is agathos, which means inward goodness and character development. This verse is not saying that God will change the circumstances of those who love him. He promises that all things will work to change our heart, to change our character for the better, if we allow it to. If we're not willing to walk through the pain and ask what it's teaching us, we're going to be prone to fall into bitterness and resentment because our focus is going to be on our circumstances instead of what God is doing with our character. They say that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how we respond to it. When I was going through my second divorce and faced not only losing my husband, but the stepson that I had raised for 12 years and the family of 5 that we had created together, I responded with anger and a hardened heart to God. I focused on asking what I now believe to be the wrong questions because they were questions that left me a hopeless victim of my circumstances. I'd ask things like, why is he doing this? Why can't I have the marriage that those people have? Why is God allowing this to happen to me? Now, fast forward, when I went through my separation 7 years ago with my current husband, I finally started to ask the right questions. And that has made all the difference, not just in saving my marriage, but in building my character and changing my heart. Instead of focusing on the circumstance that I was in, I focused on my end goal, and not just the end goal of my marriage, but in my life. I asked, what do I want for my future? What type of person do I want to be for myself and my children? And what do I need to start doing to make that happen? And then the other side of that, what do I need to stop doing to prevent myself from falling into old patterns? Because, like I said, that's where we have a tendency to go. When hard times come, we just revert back to soothing the pain in ways that have been modeled for us and in the ways that have given us temporary relief in the past. But unless you do the hard work of letting the pain teach you a new way of thinking and loving, you'll just repeat the same mistakes over and over and never clear the wreckage of your past. If we continue to do what we've always done, we'll continue to get what we've always gotten. Definition of insanity. Ultimately, we have to be willing to ask ourselves questions that will cause us to grow stronger rather than weaker. Of all the questions that I asked myself, though, the most impactful and life-changing question I asked was, what do I want people to say at my funeral? And I wrote it out. Once I could see it in writing, what I wanted my end goal to be, I was empowered to make the changes I needed in my life in order to achieve that. And that was with or without a husband. And I've consciously been working toward that goal ever since. It wasn't until I leaned into the pain and asked the right questions that I was finally able to learn and grow from it and to do something different in my pain. So no matter what season you find yourself in today, I want to encourage you to take your eyes off of your current situation and focus on your end goal. In fact, imagine that you're able to listen at your eulogy, at your funeral. What do you want people to say about you? What impact do you want your life to have on others? What do you want to be known for? Picture yourself as you want to be and take some time to thoughtfully write a eulogy about that person. When you ask yourself the right questions, it's easier to view your current season as a stepping stone and a learning opportunity that's forming your character and better preparing you to reach your end goal. If you're in the midst of a possible divorce, or if you have recently gone through it and are still wrestling with the pain and discomfort that you're still feeling, I want to encourage you to take this time to ask the right questions. Now, I can't promise that it will feel like pure joy. In fact, it probably won't. But I can confidently tell you that as painful as my separation was, it not only saved my marriage, it saved my life. I know who I am and what I'm working toward, and I want that for you.